we're moving on to Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. This one, it's kind of funny because when I remembered this book, when I remember the story, my main feelings that I remember coming away with it is that it still felt like Harry Potter was playing with the kitty gloves because they went above and beyond out of their way to make sure that none of the children died in this in the most over-the-top way possible. You know, like, oh, the basilisk, he didn't kill anyone because they all saw him through the reflection. He saw him through a camera, he saw him through a ghost, he saw him through a puddle in the water, he saw them through the glint in somebody else's eye. You know, it's like it felt like every single thing was just set up in a way. So it made me think that the book was a little bit, you know, too painted with the kitty gloves. But I was still looking forward to seeing what they did with it, what they did with the story. And I gotta say, this is leaps and bounds improvements over the first one. I'm not sure if I blatantly said this one in my last video, but the first one sucked. It was just, it was terrible. The story was boring. The characters were not particularly well acted by most of the characters. It was kind of a lot of exposition and then ba-da-ba-da-ba and then a climax at the end. So, yeah, I didn't really have a whole lot of good things to say about it, but there's a lot of stuff that really stood out about this. First of all, the one thing I want to applaud this movie so much, and it's like a breath of fresh air considering movies nowadays and the way they make them, there is so much practical effects in this movie that make it look absolutely incredible because of that. You know, it's like there's practical stuff with the moment that really cemented it for me is like, I'm like, okay, we're about to see the giant spider, and I jokingly go over to Caitlin and be like, okay, this only came out, a year or two before Return of the King, so let's see if it's just as good as Spider-Man, because that to me is the best giant spider I've ever seen in movies. And this came out, and it was a real freaking spider. Not a real spider, but you know, the props were real. It was there. It was tangible. Even Lord of the Rings didn't do that, and that made it look actually scary. And there was actual practical things in the movie. Like, there was a moment where they think that they're away from the spiders, and the one jumps up. And I was expecting it to jump up. I'm like, okay, there's a pause. It's going to jump up at the window, scare them, and they're going to drive away. But what I didn't expect her to grab Ron around the throat and like actually choking him. And that actually made me jump even though I knew it was coming. Because it actually felt like it was something that was real and a tangible threat. But it's not just the spiders. The giant serpent, the basilisk, there's scenes in it where there's a lot of just CGI. It's mostly CGI. But there are scenes where they have the practical prop actually there. And it makes it feel so much better. And I'm just like, people these days are so lazy with their movies. They won't even have a scene where the character, if it's like dead, if their giant snake is dead, they won't even say, well, let's get a dead snake prop. They're like, no, CGI and everything. You know, like, the realness of it. And other characters that are CGI in this movie, like Dobby. Dobby is way better than I was expecting him to be out the gate, you know? Like, I'm not saying that he's as good as Andy Serkis as Gollum, you know? But the effects on him, and there's still some times where I feel like Daniel Radcliffe is like, okay, he's down there, now look up. Yeah, look at him, he's right there. You know, like, I still feel that a little bit. But the character still feels like a character to me. There's some times where I can let it slide as long as I feel like the character's personality is coming across, and I really did. It once again has to speed through a lot of things, so it doesn't even pay off stuff that they ended with the first one. Like, the first one ends with, like, Hagrid saying, but your uncle and aunt don't need to know that you're not allowed to use magic outside of Hogwarts, which was a thing in the books where once they figure out they're mad at him and, you know, banish him to the room and whatnot, but they, you know, treat him nicely because they were worried that he's going to hex them. But they don't have time to go into all that, and if they knew they didn't have time to go into all that, they probably should have left that line out of it entirely. There are some things that I do think, like Guinea, for example. Like, I was actually, it took me a second, like, who is the one opening the Chamber of Secrets? I know it's Tom Riddle, and then I'm like, oh yeah, it's Guinea. And the reason I totally forgot is because Guinea is barely a character in this movie. We see one scene where she sees Harry, she gets shy, and she walks away. And they might have had some shots on her throughout the movie, but I didn't really pick up on her or anything. There's no shots or, foreshadowing of her. It's like, it's Ron's sister. And it's like, oh right, yeah, I totally forgot she was a thing. I think, though, it's one of those things where it's just like, it's a big book and you gotta... Actually, no, the second one isn't that big of a book. So I feel like you could have incorporated a few more scenes with Guinea, a few more scenes just to establish her more as a character. There are some good sleight of hand, like when... Malfoy's father... Anyway, when he, puts the book in her thing, I didn't even notice that there's 2 books. That's pretty good. There's also a lot of good details on the set stuff. Like, I love the prop where Harry stabs the prop with the basilisk fang and blood starts splurting out of it. That's still really good. I still like all of that. I love that. That is a great effect. I love the fact that you're stabbing a book and the character is starting to fade from reality as he's trying to suck the life out of her. Although I was like, is it a thing in the book that Tom Riddle can't cast any spells? Like, he has Harry's wand. Is it a thing that he can't cast spells yet? Because otherwise, you could have helped out your basilisk friend by doing a couple of Avada Kedavras. I'm just saying. And I will say that Hagrid put Harry and Ron in the most amount of danger for the least amount of benefit. I was thinking, oh yeah, talking to this giant spider, that really helps solve the mystery for him, doesn't it? And he's just like, it wasn't me. It was a giant creature that spiders hate. I was like, oh, okay. And it's like, look, here, it says it hates spiders. You probably could have figured that out without going into the den of some giant spiders that almost just killed you. An army of spiders. The only reason they didn't kill you is because your magic car came and picked you up. Which, okay, also the magic car. That also I found was really, really dumb. Not the car itself, and it's kind of understandable because they're kids. Let me say my thoughts. I always thought the moment where they try to go into the station and it doesn't work, and they're like, well, we have to take the car in order to, make our way back to Hogwarts. I'm like, you guys realize you could skip a day? That's, possible. If you're like, hey, I can't get through... write a letter to Hogwarts and send Hedwig to deliver it, saying hey, I can't get through. For some reason, the gate isn't working. Can somebody come pick me up? I mean, why did you need to fly the car? But, I will give it a little bit of leeway because it's supposed to be kids. They grew up a lot in between movies. It's one of those things where they were this high and now they're this high. They grew up a lot. And I bet if they did not, film this the very next year. This was not like Lord of the Rings where they shot them back to back to back or all at once in that case. So yeah, they definitely did a lot of growing. I'm sure it's going to be a little jarring for these early ones where they're supposed to be 11 and... They're like, yeah, you're looking like you're 13, 14. But okay, let's rank it. Obviously, I'm ranking it at number 1 in the Harry Potter's movies right now. I'm thinking that I think that, yeah, it's definitely, it's not my favorite book of the franchise, but as far as the movies, I love the practical effects. And I'm wondering if by, the last one, we lose that. If there's, less practicality and more, just Hollywood special effects. If they're good and they hold up, maybe it won't be that big of a problem. But, if not, this might be one of those things where, I have to take some points away from it. Let's take the best scene in the movie. What is the best scene in the film? And, I was thinking about it, and I was really impressed with just the whole basilisk fight sort of thing. Just because I was impressed with the effects, I was impressed with the fight. I will say that Tom Riddle's scenes in that are a little bit a little bit like, haha, let me explain why I'm the villain. See, Tom Riddle, I am Lord Voldemort. Like, with Voldemort, this, Wizard really care about that? I guess because he's a teenager at this point, maybe he's a little bit more full of himself and a little bit more showboaty. But yeah, it's like Darth Vader carving Vader was here with his lightsaber in a wall. It feels a little bit beneath him. However, just the fight with no. You know what? Actually, I'm not going to put the fight with the Basilisk. I'm actually going to put the spider scene. Yeah. Even though I found it's like in very, very bad of Hagrid to send them there, I think the spider scene is actually the best scene because the practicalness of the spider was really good. It was the most intense I've actually felt in the movie with the jumping scene. The effects on the spiders all were just really good and gave me a little bit of the willies. So I will say, yeah, for me, surprisingly, because I always thought this scene was a little weird when I read the book, I think that's the best scene in the movie. I'm going to say the spider scene is the best because it's the one that had the most, terror for me. And also, I was really impressed with the practicality. I think the Basilisk scene is good still, but it had a few things that, like, the flimsiness of the sword with Harry swinging it, that's kind of, like, not great, and I don't know. There's a couple of just, like, small hiccups there that just kind of throw me off. Worst scene of the movie. Yeah, what was the scene? I feel like there was something that I was just like, okay, this is really, really dumb. I got it. It's, the way Fawkes comes. Like, that just, even when I read that in the book, I thought that was dumb. He's like, only those who need help will always get it. And then he says something similar, and then Fawkes comes over and drops the hat and the sword and everything. I'm like, that comes out of nowhere. I feel like if, I don't know. I feel like if he gave him like an actual magic word or magic phrase, and then he repeated it, and then it happened. I don't know, the way it felt a little bit more to Care Bears when he was like, well, you must have shown great loyalty in order for Fawkes to come help you. I mean, yeah, sure. My favorite acting that was done in this movie was actually by Moaning Myrtle's actress. I should look up her name. She's played by Shirley Henderson. I'm changing this up a bit. Sorry, this list is going to be a little... I'm working at it as I go. The X-Men movies, I had seen most of them, so I kind of knew which ones I want to tackle. So I'm just going to put Best Acting Performance, not Best Actor. I think Moaning Myrtle's character, I always found to be very annoying in the book, but I actually laughed a lot at her scenes. Like just go... I can't even quote them. I just thought they were very, very, very funny. When it comes to best quick moment, I don't have one specific in mind. I have just a lot of Ron Weasley's, like, moaning, especially when they're following the spiders. Harry! Harry! But I think the one that, since he's the only one I can really think about, there's a moment at the end where it's like, and thanks to all this trauma that you've been going through, all exams are cancelled. And you just see her mind go like, oh, come on. It's just like, come on. So yeah, I'll put that in there. I think my actual favorite quick moment is probably something that Ron did. I'm adding something in. This wasn't in the last video, so I will address it. I'm adding in. I said I want to do something like magical moment or the most magical part, but I thought that would probably just still be the best. I think the most magical thing is what I'm going to say about this. So I'm going to say that this is the most magical thing about this movie. Not necessarily a scene, not necessarily a character. It could be anything like that. I would say of the first movie, because I didn't say this, so I'm adding this in. So I would say of the first movie, the most magical thing about that movie would have to be its atmosphere. I'm just going to, instead of being so vague, I'm going to say its musical track. Because the score, you got to admit, has been pretty on point from the get-go, from the jump. Pretty great score, and so I think the music is a lot. So that's what I'm saying for the first movie is the music. For the second movie, I'm going to say it's just the practicality of all the effects. There's just so much, and it made me like... Movies don't do this anymore. The last movie that I saw that was recent that had this much practical effects was I don't know, probably Everything Everywhere All at Once, but before that, what, Mad Max, Fury Road? It feels like it's just a lost art, and I feel like this movie had the right amount of balance of over-the-top CGI scenes, but smaller, quicker moments that were also practical effects. Even the scene where Fox comes and has tears on Harry's wounds, I'm like, yeah, okay, that's, like, in the book I was like, that's just a weird scene. But here I'm like, oh my gosh, they actually have a puppet bird that looks so fantastic. So yeah, let's put them all in the rankings. Obviously, I'm having the Chamber of Secrets above the Philosopher's Stone. I think it's just a way better movie. I think it's just way better acted. The acting overall by everybody is just greatly improved. I think the storytelling is better and more linear and just has a better story to tell. For the best scene in the movie, I'm definitely going to be putting a wizard chess underneath the spider scene. I just think it's an amazing, practical, effect-looking spider, and I think that whole scene has a lot of intensity to it, and, you know, I think it's just real good, really well done, and so I think, yeah, I'm putting the spider scene ahead of the chess, and the chess scene is also practical effects, which is why it's on here as well, and I hope the movies franchises don't lose that as they get more and more closer to the modern day, although, I mean, modern, but anyway. For my favorite acting performance, I'm gonna say that I'm gonna keep Hermione in the first one over Moaning Myrtle in this one. Moaning Myrtle was fun, but I feel like it was one of those performances that I think Emma Watson, I almost said Emma Stone again, Emma Watson right out the gun just had the character completely like perfect, and so I feel like that sort of straight out the gun was I'm gonna say I prefer that one. So for worst scene, I'm going to definitely put the bad CGI centaur over the power of loyalty, I'm going to call it, of you know, Fox showing up just because he was loyal. I mean, that's just, it's you know, not, it's a little corny, it's a little cheesy, it's not as terrible looking as the bad centaur, and I'm looking forward to see if anything can top the bad centaur. I don't think so. But and then for a quick moment, okay, this is a note for you, Kenneth. I think we can get rid of the quick moments. We don't know these movies as well, so we can get rid of those. And for my new category that just had this round of the most magical part of the film, I would have to say that I'm going to... It's hard to get to be able to compete with the score. I'll keep the score at number one, and I will put the practical effects of the second one behind it, and yeah, that is what I'm gonna do. So thanks for watching, everybody, and you know, I will say after the first one I was a little bit like, boy, how long is it gonna take for these movies to keep my interest? I think the second one picks it up. It still has a little bit of the kid, as I say, the kitty gloves are still on a little bit, but I will admit I'm excited to see what happens next. And that is something I was not feeling after watching the first one. And so, yeah, let's get serious with the next one.
Be sure to check out some of these other videos on my channel. And wait for more coming soon.